All right. Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to Once Upon a Time in Texas, episode number 107. I'm your host, Michael Mitchell. A couple of fun things going on. I mean, obviously, kids are doing their spring star testing at this point, and my kids are like all the others. They're kind of tired of it and already a little crabby about it. We did have a beautiful weekend last weekend, and we were out camping with our troop. Because, sometimes you just got to get outside and get a little bit of sunshine and wind. And it was beautiful. We were helping out at the Northwest Texas Council Spring Cub and Pal, and it was just amazing. Couldn't ask for better weather in the springtime. It wasn't cold, wasn't too hot. Didn't rain, didn't snow, didn't hail. That's nice. So yeah, it was a great weekend. Speaking of hail, we suffered like everybody else, suffered some hail damage, and took my truck in last Friday, took my wife and daughter's vehicles in yesterday, got my first estimate back on my vehicle to the tune of about $7,000. Man, just the amount of damage that happens from hail is just incredible. So, anyway, that was just on my truck. We'll see how my wife and daughter's comes back. Not sure yet. And other good news, this morning went to City Council, and I think I've told you guys that I have been the chair of the Wichita Falls City Revitalization Committee for about a year and a half now. We've been doing a lot of work, researching a lot of stuff, and we feel like we finally come up with a good plan. And we presented that plan this morning to the city council, talked about things, and it was approved to continue moving forward. And so I'm actually doing my podcast on Tuesday in between the city council meeting and then our city revitalization committee meeting this afternoon. So it's been a pretty good day. So let's go ahead and jump into this week. So we hear place names, and I often wonder where they come from, but really you kind of overlook the people that these place names honor. If you don't really know, you just kind of move on with your life. I found 3 that were really important to Texas that I believe are kind of often overlooked. They were big players in the Texas fight for independence and making Texas what it is. And I can't honestly say that I've ever really, just outside of other than in passing, have really heard much about them. So I thought it might be a good time to talk about that. So 3 guys. One is Seguin, Navarro, and Zavala. They're on the list this week, so we're going to learn about them. Before we jump into this, of course, I want to thank our sponsors. That's me and Victory Home Loans. I know there are tons of people moving to and in Texas and Oklahoma, and I know a lot of you guys do too. So if you know somebody that's looking to buy a home, refinance, maybe do a reverse mortgage, looking at land, even trailer homes on land, send them my way. Send them over to themichaelmitchell.com, THE, michaelmitchell.com, and let them know that I sell dreams, not mortgages. So that's me and Victory Home Loans. So where'd this week's idea come from? Well, really, I was just doing some more reading on TSHA Online, the Texas State Historical Association Online, and things were popping up about these other 3 guys, and I thought, I know who Seguin and Navarro and Zavala are, but I couldn't really think of any time that I'd really ever explored them and kind of dug into them to see kind of what their purpose was, why they deserve town names and other place names in Texas. And so thought we'd take a look at them this week. I hope you guys enjoy it. Starting off our first one, Juan, and I'm going to mess up his middle name, Nepomuccio, I think I messed that up pretty bad. Seguin. He was a Spanish Tejano political and military figure of the Texas Revolution who helped establish the independence of Texas. Numerous places and institutions are named in his honor, including the county seat of Seguin in Guadalupe County, the Juan N. Seguin Memorial Interchange in Houston, Juan Seguin Monument in Seguin, Texas, the World War II Liberty ship SS Juan N. Seguin, and Seguin High School in Arlington. So Juan Seguin is born October 27, 1806, in San Antonio de Bexar. Bexar looks like Bexar, but it's pronounced Bexar. It's Bexar, in the province of Texas. Viceroyalty of New Spain to Juan Jose Maria Erasmo Seguin, a second generation Bexarino, as they pronounce or they say it, and Maria Josefa Becerra. As the son of a postal administrator, he would help his mother in business while his father was one of the drafting rapporteurs of the Mexican Constitution of 1824. In 1825, Seguin married Maria Gertrudis Flores de Abrego, and they had 10 children. Keep in mind, there was not cable TV and Facebook and TikTok back then. And so, when it got dark, there wasn't much else to do. So 10 children. He was elected an alderman in December 1828 and served on numerous electoral boards before becoming the San Antonio alcalde, basically the mayor, in December 1833. He then served as political chief of Bexar in 1834 when the previous chief became ill. In 1835, he led a relief force to Monclova when the Federalist governor appealed for help. As a teenager in Mexico, he had a strong interest in politics, while Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, who we all know, repealed the Mexican Constitution of 1824, Seguin was very critical of his contemporary Mexican leader. Years later, Seguin gladly joined the Texas Revolution to rid the area of Santa Anna's rule. In 1835 and 36, Seguin recruited and commanded troops for the Texian Army. That's correct, Texian, Texian. He was commissioned a captain by Stephen F. Austin in October 1835 at the ripe old age, I guess, of 29. And he was tasked with supplying the Texian troops with food and provisions. Seguin sent out scouting parties to missions of San Antonio in search of suitable base camp for the Texians and participated in the early successful Battle of Concepcion. Martin Perfecto de Cas was appointed as military governor over Texas by his brother-in-law Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna and established his headquarters in San Antonio on October 9, 1835. Upwards of 160 rancheros, so Mexican ranch owners, and other Tejanos under Seguin, Jose Carbajal, Placido Benavidez, and Salvador Flores, and Manuel Leal joined Austin and approximately 400 Texians at the Siege of Bexar. After the 2-month battle, Cas surrendered on December 9th. A big win. In January 1836, Seguin was commissioned as a captain in the regular Texas Army. Upon the return of Santa Anna's army, Seguin joined William B. Travis on February 23rd in the Battle of the Alamo. Although serving at the Alamo during the 13-day siege, he did not actually participate in the final Battle of the Alamo. He was chosen, luckily I guess, to carry the Alamo message through enemy lines that the Texans shall never surrender or retreat. Seguin got the message through to the other soldiers on the Texian side. He then returned with men to reinforce the Alamo, but it had already fallen to Santa Anna's army. So Juan Seguin's volunteers were Texas Tejano Mexican rancher owners or rancheros who joined the Texian army to fight Mexico in the Texas Revolution of 1835 and 36. After the Alamo, he reformed cavalry companies at Gonzales and acted as the rear guard, providing protection for fleeing Texas families during the runaway scrape. His company, with Captain Mosley Baker's company, blocked the Mexican army from crossing the Brazos River, preventing them from overtaking the Texians. His cavalry command, participating as infantry with Sherman's company, fought in the victorious Battle of San Jacinto in May of 1836. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel. On June 4th, as a representative of the Republic of Texas, he accepted the formal surrender of the Mexican forces in the Alamo. Seguin was elected as a Texas senator from 1837 to 1840 and worked closely with Congressman Jose Antonio Navarro, who we'll talk about in a minute, to ensure legislation that would be in the best interest of the citizenry of Texas, who were quickly becoming the political minority. In 1839, Seguin, captain of a Texas force of about 54 men, again protected the colonists in the Henry Karnes campaign against the hostile Comanche Indians. In 1839, at a town 30 miles east of San Antonio, he was honored by parade and celebration. That newly named town would now bear his name, Seguin, Texas. In 1840, he resigned his congressional seat in order to join the controversial campaign against the centralist government in Mexico City. He became the mayor of San Antonio in 1841. Texas then becomes flooded with adventurous and land-hungry North Americans who were unfamiliar with the native Texans' history and their loyal support of Texas. Seguin's leadership and loyalty was challenged by these newcomers, and refusing to burn San Antonio to the ground by order of the new head of the Texas military was just the beginning. In 1842, San Antonio was overrun by Santa Anna's forces. During March 1842, Colonel Seguin of the citizens of San Antonio sought refuge in Manuel Flores's ranch in the city of Seguin, Texas. A counterattack was planned, and even though Seguin pursued the army of Rafael Vasquez, chasing them from Texas, he was deemed to be blamed for the attack. Seguin resigned from office in April due to threats of his life, opposition to his defense of Texas rights, adversities and false charges. Adversities and false charges that he was aiding the Mexican army proved too much to bear. He fled to Mexico to seek refuge amongst his enemies, where he was captured, arrested, and coerced to enlist in the Mexican army as a staff officer. He returned to San Antonio with the oppositional army of Adrian Wall in September 1842 and later served under Santa Anna in the Mexican-American War of 1846 and 1848. So he kind of flipped sides. So in February 1848, Seguin requested permission to return to Texas. By the year's end, he had returned, building a home in 1852, adjacent to his father Erasmo Seguin's house, and ranching in Floresville, Texas. He was elected to 2 terms as Justice of the Peace of Bexar County in 1852 and 54, and became a founding father of the Democratic Party in Bexar County. In 1858, he published his life's memoirs. Seguin served as county judge in Wilson County in 1869. However, business dealings occasionally took him back to Mexico, and in around 1883, he settled in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, just right across the border, to be near his son Santiago, who was then mayor. He died there on August 27, 1890. His remains were returned to Texas in 1974, and as part of the nation's bicentennial celebration, were reinterred in his namesake town, Seguin, during the ceremonies on July 4, 1976. A large monument depicting him on horseback, waving his saber, now honors his service to Texas in the downtown Seguin Central Park. So, yes, he flipped sides, but, kind of a tough situation. The new people are kind of threatening him. They're questioning his loyalty. And so he decides, screw it, and heads south. And is basically arrested and kind of conscripted, more or less, to join again. But then he comes back, settles in Texas for the most part, and is honored with, stuff for his service. So how about this Navarro guy, Jose Antonio Navarro, a leading Mexican participant in the Texas Revolution, the son of Maria Josefa Ruiz and Angel Navarro, was born in San Antonio de Bexar on February 27th, 1895, so about 9 years older than our buddy Seguin. His father was a native of Corsica, and his mother was descended from a noble Spanish family. Navarro's early education was rudimentary, though he later read law in San Antonio and was licensed to practice. He was compelled to flee the United States because of his support of the Gutierrez-McGee expedition in 1813, but returned to Texas in 1816. A developing friendship with a guy named Stephen F. Austin served to deepen his interest in Texas colonization. Before Texas independence, Navarro was elected to both the Coahuila and Texas state legislatures and to the federal Congress at Mexico City. He supported Texas statehood in 1835 and embraced the idea of independence the following year. Along with his uncle Jose Francisco Ruiz and Lorenzo de Zavala, who we'll talk about later, he became one of the 3 Mexican signers of the Texas Declaration of Independence and one of just 2 native-born Tejano signers. Upon his election to the Texas Congress as a representative from Bexar, Navarro sought to advance the rights of Tejanos, whom many Anglo-Texans held in contempt after the Texas Revolution. Basically, after the Texas Revolution, lots of people blame Mexicans just kind of for everything, and it didn't matter which side you fought on, you were to blame. That's kind of an unfortunate part of history. He also generally endorsed the politics of President Mirabeau B. Lamar, while opposing those of Sam Houston. As a supporter of Lamar, Navarro was elected as a commissioner to accompany the foolishly conceived Santa Fe expedition. Decimated by Indian attacks and suffering from hunger and thirst, those who survived the march from Austin tamely capitulated outside the gates of Santa Fe. After imprisonment under brutal conditions at Veracruz for 14 months, Navarro escaped and returned back to his native Texas. He had for a long time favored the annexation of Texas to the United States. He was the sole Hispanic delegate to the Convention of 1845, which was assembled to accept or reject the American proposal. After voting in the affirmative, he remained to help write the first state constitution, the Constitution of 1845. He was subsequently twice elected to the state Senate, though in 1849 he refused to run again. In 1846, in recognition of his contributions to Texas over the years, the legislature named the newly established Navarro County in his honor. The county seat was then designated Corsicana in honor of his father's Corsican birth. As a devout Catholic, Navarro strongly condemned Sam Houston's association with the nativist and anti-Catholic American Know Nothing Party. He was equally critical of Houston's pro-union vote on the Kansas-Nebraska issue, always a strong advocate in states' rights. In 1861, he defended the right of Texas to secede from the Union. Although he was too advanced in years to participate in the Civil War, his 4 sons served on the Confederate military. In 1825, Navarro married the Margarita de la Garza. They had 7 children, and he passed away in 1871, which would have put him about 76 years old, if my math is correct. So quite the life, and kind of somewhat coming from royalty and being involved in all these important things. It's pretty crazy. But now, let's talk about this Zavala guy. Because he was one of the signers. What did it say up here? One of the 3 signers of the Texas Independence, Declaration of Independence. So his full name is Manuel Lorenzo Justiano de Zavala y Saenz, the first president of the Republic of Texas, the fifth of 9 children of Anastasio de Zavala y Velasquez and Maria Barbara Saenz y Castro. Was born in the village of Teco near Merida, Yucatan, way south, on October 3rd, 1788. After graduating from the Tridentine Seminary of San Ildefonso in Merida in 1807, he founded and edited several newspapers in which he expressed those democratic ideas that were to be the hallmark of his political career. Ideas which he continued to advocate while serving as secretary of the City Council of Merida from 1812 until 1814. His support of democratic reforms led to his imprisonment in 1814 in the fortress of San Juan de Ulloa in the harbor of Veracruz, where he gained enough knowledge from reading medical textbooks to qualify him to practice medicine upon his release from prison in 1817. He also taught himself to read English during his imprisonment. After serving as secretary of the Provincial Assembly of Yucatan in 1820, Zavala went to Madrid in 1821 as a deputy to the Spanish Cortes. Upon his return to Mexico, he joined the leaders of the new nation in establishing a republican government. From 1822 until his death, he was one of the nation's most active political leaders, representing Yucatan as a deputy in the First and Second Mexican Constituent Congresses of 1822 and 1824, and in the Mexican Senate from 1824 to 1826. In the following 2 years, marked by the internecine struggle between the Federalist and Centralist for control over both national and state governments, Zavala served intermittently as governor of the state of Mexico. When Vicente Ramon Guerrero became president, Zavala was appointed Secretary of Treasury and served from April to October 1829. When the Centralist Party, led by Vice President Anastasio Bustamante, ousted Guerrero later that year, Zavala, a strong Federalist, was forced to abandon politics and, after a period of house arrest, go into exile in June of 1830. Where does he go into exile? New York, of course. Upon his arrival in New York, Zavala sought to interest Eastern capitalists in the impresario grants that he had received on March 12, 1829, which authorized him to settle 500 families in a huge tract of land of what is now known as southeastern Texas. In New York City in October 1830, he transferred his interest in the grants to the Galveston Bay and Texas Land Company. After spending several months during 1831 in France and England, Zavala resided in New York City until his return to Mexico in the summer of 1832. From December 1832 until October 1833, he again served as governor of the state of Mexico before returning to Congress as a deputy for his native state of Yucatan. Named by President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna in October 1833 to serve as his first minister plenipotentiary of the Mexican legation of Paris. Good Lord, that's a word. He reported to that post in the spring of 1834. When he learned that Santa Anna had assumed dictatorial powers, God, that's another hard word, in April of that year, Zavala denounced his former ally and resigned from his diplomatic assignment. So basically, gave Santa Anna the finger. Disregarding Santa Anna's orders to return to Mexico City, he traveled to New York and then to Texas, where he arrived in July 1835. And as you guys know from history, July of 1885, like, he's coming into the thick of it. And he's already pissed off Santa Anna. So from the day of his arrival, he was drawn into political cauldron of Texas politics, although he first advocated the cause of Mexican federalism, within a few weeks he became an active supporter of the independence movement. He served in the Permanent Council and later as the representative of Harrisburg in the Consultation and the Convention of 1836. At the convention, he signed the Texas Declaration of Independence along with Jose Francisco Ruiz and Jose Antonio Navarro and 56 other delegates. Zavala's legislative, executive, ministerial, and diplomatic experience, together with his education and linguistic ability, uniquely qualified him for the role he was to play in the drafting of the Constitution of the Republic of Texas. His advice and counsel earned him the respect of his fellow delegates, who elected him ad interim vice president of the new republic. In the weeks after adjournment of the convention, Zavala rejoined his family at their home at Zavala Point in Buffalo Bayou, from where they fled to Galveston Island as Santa Anna's army pursued Zavala and other cabinet members across Texas. In accordance with the provisions of the treaties of Velasco, Zavala was appointed on May 27, 1836, one of the peace commissioners to accompany Santa Anna to Mexico City, where the general was to attempt to persuade the Mexican authorities to recognize the independence of Texas. The frustration of this plan by certain Texas military units brought an end to the Peace Commission. Shortly thereafter, Zavala returned to his home in poor health and relinquished his part in the affairs of state. He resigned the vice presidency on October 17, 1836. Less than a month later, soaked and half frozen by a norther after his rowboat overturned in Buffalo Bayou, he developed pneumonia, to which he succumbed on November 15, 1836, before the rest of the big blow-up in Texas happened. He was buried at his home in a small cemetery plot marked by the state of Texas in 1931. The plot has since sunk into Buffalo Bayou. That's sad. In the 25 years after 1807, when Zavala became politically active, he demonstrated his skills as a writer in uncounted articles and editorials in newspapers in Merida and Mexico City, and in a large number of pamphlets and memorials. He is best known as an author for his 2-volume History of Mexico, which first appeared under the title Ensayo Histórico de las Revoluciones de México desde 1808 hasta 1830. Paris and New York, 1831-1832. And for his Viaje a los Estados Unidos de la Norte de America, Paris 1834, in which he described economic, political, and social phenomena he observed during his visit to the United States in 1830 and 31. Little on his family, Zavala's first wife was Teresa Correa y Correa, whom he married in Yucatan in 1807. They had 3 children, including Lorenzo Jr., who served his father in Paris as Secretary of Legation, and after the Battle of San Jacinto, served as translator for Sam Houston in his negotiations with Santa Anna. Zavala's wife died in the spring of 1831, and he later married a lady named Emily West, a native of Rensselaer, New York, and he married her in New York City on November 12, 1831. To this union were born 3 children. Augustine, the eldest, was the father of Adina Emilia de Zavala, who long will be remembered for her spirited role in the fight to preserve the Alamo. Zavala's memory is preserved in Texas in a number of place names, notably Zavala County, a village in Jasper County, and a rural settlement in Angelina County, and in numerous street and school names. On a side note, I found this interesting. Zavala was a fellow Mason. He and his friends secretly organized the first Masonic lodge in Yucatan, the Reunion a la Virtud Lodge No. 9. The lodge received its charter from the Louisiana Grand Lodge in 1817. It was Zavala's first relationship with his fellow Masonic brothers and to other lodges that allowed him to gather many political connections prior to Mexico's independence. Zavala was one of the key people that helped establish the York Rite Masonry in Mexico in 1826 as an alternative to the older, well-established Scottish Rite. That same year, the Grand Lodge of New York issued charters to 5 Masonic lodges in Mexico City. These 5 lodges became the nucleus of the movement that favored decentralization of leadership. Zavala became the charter master of the Independencia Lodge number 454. He kept his position until his exile in 1830. He is listed as a Masonic hero by the Grand Lodge of Texas, although some sources state that Zavala was a bit disgraced for revealing ritual secrets, which I can't reveal to you. If you want to know, go join Masons, and if you're interested in joining Masons, ask me how. So there you go. What do you guys think? 3 guys that we hear their names a lot, but we don't know a whole lot about. Seguin, Navarro, and Zavala. What do y'all think? What other weird, off-the-wall, or interesting Texas history would you like to hear about? I want to thank our sponsors again. Of course, that's me and Victory Home Loans. Keep in mind, if you know someone moving to or in Texas or Oklahoma, send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com. THE. MichaelMitchell.com. And remember, I sell dreams, not mortgages. Thank you all for tuning in to Once Upon a Time in Texas. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all have a great week.